Hey, what is up? Welcome to Creativity Bridge. I'm your host, Ruben Cueto. In this lesson, we'll begin our journey into the world of visual art. And like anything worthwhile, it's going to take some time and effort. But by approaching the subject one step at a time and not giving up on ourselves, I'm confident we'll be successful. And while I'm just as anxious as you to start drawing, there's some things I need to explain first before we get started. So before we grab our pencils, I have a question to ask. How do people develop artistically? Everyone knows how we develop physically. We're born as infants, we become toddlers, kids, teenagers, young adults, you get the idea. But how do people develop artistically? Well, all people make the discovery of visual art. It doesn't matter where on the planet you live or when in human history you lived. All people, from our cave dwelling ancestors up to the modern world, have been fascinated by trying to visually document what they see and feel. Now, some of you might be going, nah, I was never into art. Now, are you sure? You don't remember doodling when you were bored in class, or that favorite box of crayons or colored pencils you had, or getting into trouble because you drew with the markers on the living room wall? There's a period, especially for young children, when art making, when communicating visually, was very important expressive activity. There is a freedom in children when they draw because for children, accuracy is not an issue. So let's jump into our mental time machine here. Kids love to draw people who are important to them, right? So allow me to demonstrate. I'm going to jump back into my time machine and I'm going to draw how you used to draw your mother. Give her a happy face, some nice outstretched arms. So back when you were a little kid, maybe you drew something like this. Now I'm going to draw your house with a nice tree next to it. We need a window, nice tree to play under, right? So, as I mentioned, there's a freedom in children when they draw because their drawings are feeling oriented, meaning this drawing feels like mom, feels like their house, feels like a tree, right? They're not concerned with accuracy. However, as we get older, we begin to make more demands on ourselves, and that's generally true in anything that we pursue, including art. So, what happens during adolescence, children begin to feel a need to draw realistically and they get frustrated. They start to look at their art and they realize, hey, wait a minute. Mom doesn't have a triangle dress or electrified hair, or the house we have, doesn't produce curly Q smoke, and I don't know what's up with that tree. So, what had once been a perfectly acceptable drawing when we were young, even maybe pride inducing, now we begin to judge as childish. Therefore, and unfortunately, the most natural thing in the world happened. So, for most children, they abandon their desire for making art and they stop being visually artistic. And how could they not, right? Our response became, well, my mom can draw, my friends can draw, my dad can draw, but not me. So, what happens is we place ourselves into this constricting corner and we decide to hold on to that definition of ourselves. What I just described, unfortunately, is a path of artistic development for the vast majority of people out there. A few children, however, do stay the course and continue down their creative path, making mistakes along the way, but not worrying about them and becoming better and better with practice. So, why is realism the issue that pushed most of us away from art? Why is realism a problem? Well, the issue is one of perception. It comes down to our ability to see accurately. Now, I'm not saying you have literal vision problems and need to get your eyes checked. What I am saying is that most people don't know how to process the complex three-dimensional world we live in and how to translate it onto an accurate, flat, two-dimensional visual surface. Or they don't know how to take the artistic vision that they have in their mind and how to express it visually. Instead of perceiving the visual reality that's in front of us and documenting it accurately, our mind will begin to substitute symbols in its place. Our drawings, therefore, become symbolic. So let's define symbol then for our purposes. A symbol is visual shorthand representing a detailed object. Here's a classic example. On the left, you have a symbolic drawing, and on the right, you have a realistic drawing. Now, obviously, the image that we have here is a heart. On the right side, we have a realistic human heart, right? Working its magic, making us live, and that's great. And on the right side is a symbolic version, okay? Now, if you were to go get your physical and you find out that you have something like this inside, you better be glad that you're seeing your doctor because it should look like this. What we want to do is we want to start drawing realistically. But a lot of us are stuck in the symbolic world, and that's the problem. We use symbols instead of seeing what's actually in front of us. Because to draw something like this, we need to focus, we need to slow down, and we need to look at details. But a fast symbol is a quick solution to a visual problem. Now, it's very important to note, I'm not making a value judgment here, placing one style of art over the other. Both styles have their charms and their benefits. What I am saying is your art is symbolic and you want it to become realistic. It's very possible to learn how. We just have to improve our perception skills first. For example, let's say you're tasked with drawing a chair. Now, what might happen is, okay, if I want to draw something fast and quick, I can use a symbol, right? There's a chair. Here's where your butt goes. These are the legs. That's for some back support. Chair, done, beautiful. And so that's a symbol for a chair. But let's say you wanted to draw a real chair, okay? You'd probably have to look at one unless you got one memorized. I'm going to look at a picture of a chair you might see in a classroom. And I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to look at the chair. It goes like this and it drops down. And it's got that plasticky part where you sit down. Now I've already devoted more time to this drawing than I did for the other symbolic drawing. But in order to draw well, I need to slow down and look at the actual details of the image. These are the metal legs and the casters, right, that slide around on the floor. The metal leg comes back this way. Metal leg here. It's got those things in the back. I don't know why. So here's the deal. There's no way I could have drawn this chair as quickly as I drew this chair, right? Because this was a quick symbol. It represents a chair, but it doesn't look like any chair that really exists. This one took more of a time investment, right? I had to focus on details and look at an image. But the only way we're going to draw realistically is if we slow down, look at an actual object, and develop the skills over time to be able to draw it successfully. If we keep drawing quickly, we're always going to be drawing in a symbolic way, and that's not really going to get us to where we want to go. This realistic drawing of a chair is a demonstration of the importance of patience in art. The drawing attempts that frustrate the beginner are often symbolic, fast, and impatient. But when we take our time and truly observe an object and all its line lengths and angles and specific details, it allows us to perceive and document details with greater accuracy. In fact, I would argue those of you who've been drawing since childhood and draw well weren't born with that specific skill. I doubt a sonogram has ever existed showing a fetus tagging the walls of its mother's womb. Instead, those with artistic predispositions are most likely naturally patient, who had no problem devoting hours and hours of time to their creative pursuits. Some artists might debate that, saying they aren't patient at all, but if we see someone who can concentrate for hours, days, or weeks on a project, well, you're probably looking at someone with the ability to focus deeply. So it's very important that we slow ourselves down and focus. Okay, so I'm hoping you're on board with the advantages of being patient. Now that we're getting closer to actual drawing time, it's time to start addressing 3 fundamental concerns that frees up the emergent artist. The first concern is, well, where does my pencil start? All right, that empty blank paper can be pretty intimidating, and locating a starting point, well, it can be difficult. 2, where does my pencil need to go? Once I've located where the drawing should begin on the paper, what direction am I supposed to go? Okay? And then 3, where does my pencil stop? How do I know if I'm stopping in the right place, especially if I'm a beginner? Well, fortunately, there is a strategy we can use to improve our drawing accuracy, and that is comparing our drawn lines to vertical and horizontal lines. Vertical lines are lines that go straight up and down. All right, there's a vertical. Horizontal lines go side to side, like the horizon. Okay? So these two types of lines are going to be our baseline, if you will. We'll compare our drawn lines to these two lines and we'll look for distinctions. The differences between the lines we're trying to draw compared to a perfect vertical and a perfect horizontal. Now, there are three specific visual traits that we need to monitor when we're drawing our lines. The first line trait is line length. So let's say I'm going to draw a line, okay? I'm going to draw a line and the line is this long. No problem. All I have to do is figure out where it's going to start and I'll just draw the same line length and I'm okay. So when you compare it side to side, that's no big deal drawing along a line length, correct? Now, if I go this way, let's say I have a line here, but for whatever reason, I need to draw that line down here. Now it becomes a little bit more complicated. I have to figure out how long that line should be. Now, I could use a ruler, right? But what I want to do is I want to start developing my own drawing skills, my own ability to develop or to figure out how long a line should be. So I'm going to go ahead and look at that line. I'm just going to start it here. And I'm going to guess that that line is maybe that long. Now, here's the thing. You notice I use the word guess. But the more we do this, the more our guesses are going to be correct. That's because we're developing the experience, we're making the necessary mistakes and learning from the mistakes in order to get better, okay? So the first trait is line length. The next trait that we want to talk about is line angle. Now, when we do a line angle, we want to compare the line angle compared to the perfect vertical and the perfect horizontal. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's say I'm tasked with drawing a line that goes like this. That angle, okay? Now, it's obviously not a perfect horizontal. It has its own angle to it. What I can do if I wanted to is I could use, like, let's say a highlighter. I'm going to use a highlighter, and I want you guys to visualize this space right here. See that? Imagine it like it's a cushion of air that's supporting that line up. Visualize it that way, okay? So what I can do is I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to try to imagine drawing that with that cushion of air underneath, hoping to support, if you will, the line. I'm going to go like this. Line angle, and also line length, right? The length, I think, is correct here. So that's good. So that's the second trait that we want to look for. Now, some lines aren't even straight at all, and they have a rate of change, which is referred to as curvature, the third line trait. And so what we want to do here is develop that skill as well, figuring out how the curve should be and learn to match that skill. So let's say I have a line that curves like this. Okay, a simple curve. So what I want to do is I want to figure out, okay, I need to match that rate. I'm going to start it down here, and I'm going to see if I can get this, and let's see if we can use a highlighter to visualize this area. That rate of change as it's going in that direction. It's not going to be a straight line like the line angle. It's going to have a curve to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare this line as it ascends to my perfect vertical. That's pretty close, right? And again, we're going to get better and better as we do this. And that's something that you'd want to practice. Just randomly draw a line with a curve and then see if you can match it. Making sure that it descends how it should, rises as it should. Imagine like a cushion of air in between them that you want to match. And so you get better at it. At the Creativity Bridge website is a free PDF file that has some drawing tasks that reinforce the concepts that we're covering in this lesson. So let me go over them with you right now. When you download the PDF, this is the first of 3 tasks that will be waiting for you. This is Lesson 1A, Introduction to Drawing from the Perception and Drawing Unit, Task 1 of 3. So this is the first of 3 lessons that are waiting for you. And these are line progressions. And what that is, it's a line that goes from left to right here for the horizontal progression that has angles and it has lines here that we want to mimic. For this one, it's the vertical progression that drops from the top to the bottom. And this horizontal vertical combo goes to the right, drops down, and then goes back to the left. So let's go ahead and tackle this one. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. There we go. Now let's go ahead and give it a shot here. What I want to do is I want to try drawing these angles as best I can. And I want to make sure that everything's going to be in the right spot. So what I'm going to do is, let me get this on camera a little bit better. There we go. And now I'm going to notice right here that the line begins at this point. So I'm going to start my line at that same place. It makes sense, right, that they align. And so what I notice is that from here, there's a vertical line that goes straight up, a perfectly vertical line. I'm going to go ahead and put that line right there. Now, don't feel the need to use a ruler for this or anything like that. We don't have to be that perfect. In fact, it's probably better that we don't use a ruler. What we want to do is really start to develop our skills where eventually we don't need rulers to kind of figure out measurements and stuff. It's okay to eyeball it, and it's okay if it's not perfect, believe me. Now that we have that, I notice that this line goes to the right and it starts to descend a little bit. You see that? What I tell my students, it's good to imagine this kind of like a roller coaster. It has its drops and it has the areas that it goes up and its sharp dips right there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and start to draw this line and try to mimic the descent. You see that? And now at this point, it's going to start to go up. Now what I can do is I can go like this. I want to draw a line this way. And I'm going to draw a line that goes like this. And see this shape right here? I'm going to go ahead and highlight it with the yellow highlighter. When I'm going up on this line here, I want to make sure that I get this kind of feel for it. I want to make sure that the angle is correct. I don't want to be too vertical. I definitely don't want to be horizontal. It's going to be something, I think, like this. Going up to this point. Okay? Now that I have that, it's a rounded curve going this way, and then it's going to drop down at that angle. Okay, good. Now, instead of a curve right here, there's a sharp point. So I want to make sure that I get that sharp point, and now I have another ascent that goes even higher. It's going to go up this way. So notice the difference between this one and this one. I need to make sure that this line that I'm drawing goes up high enough where it needs to go. So far it looks like we're going okay. Now we have a descent, and it's going to drop down this way. Notice the angle, though, is slightly different than the one that we just drew. Let me use a highlighter so you can see it a little bit better. This line is going at an angle like this, but this line is going slightly in a little bit. It's noticing those differences that will ultimately make us better artists. Instead of matching this angle is going to be pinched in a little bit to maybe about there. Does that look about right? Okay, and now that we have that, there's a rounded corner here, and then it drops down to basically the same point where we started. Something like that. Good. So you can see the horizontal progression, and we've matched it pretty close on this one. Now what I want to do is I'm going to try this vertical progression here. Let me get that on camera a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and find this point right here. And I'm going to go ahead and mimic these angles and these curves as it drops from top to bottom. At this point, there's a clear horizontal line. I'd say it's about that long, right? Now we have an angle going this way. Now, of course, it's not a vertical drop. It's got an angle that looks something like this. And these are things that artists, people who know how to draw, they do all this stuff naturally. But this is a skill that we can all develop just by paying attention to it. So instead of dropping vertical like this, definitely not horizontal, it's somewhere in the middle like that. Aligned basically with where we were before. Now there's a short vertical line dropping down. And now notice how far away this one goes. Instead of matching where this one started, it goes beyond it. Do you see that? So now what I want to do is I'm going to try to get this angle. It's not horizontal. It has a slight droop to it. It goes beyond where this is and then starts to turn. I'm going to try to mimic this angle as it goes back this way. And it goes beyond where this one was. Right? So these drawings do have their trick to them, right? they look like simple line drawings, and you're thinking, I don't want to draw this. I want to go ahead and draw landscapes and portraits and manga. And believe me, I want you guys to draw that stuff too. But if we can't do something as simple as these lines, which honestly aren't that simple, then those complex things, they're just going to give us trouble. We need to develop these skills from the very beginning of our development in order to do well. Now that I have that, let's go ahead and establish this angle going this way. And then we have an angle change going like that. Okay, good. Now let's do this last one, the horizontal vertical progression. Now this one's a little bit more challenging because not only do I have to go this way and make sure everything makes sense, I'm going to have to go down and go back to the left to make sure that everything's going to fit correctly. So let's see if we can figure this out. I'm going to find this spot. I'm going to guess it's around here. And now this angle, I'm going to try to mimic this angle as best I can. Okay. And then this angle pops up, going to basically the same position. Now I've got a very short vertical drop. And now this line is a little bit tricky. Let me use a highlighter so we can see that. This line right here is going like this, but then it stops here. Let me really reinforce that. Do you see that? So I want to make sure that I get this space correct. Let's go ahead and figure that out. So let's see if I'm going to do this right. We go this way. So I think we're okay there. We got that line. That angle looks about correct. Now there's a very short segment of this line that is horizontal. And then you'll notice it's got this kind of curve that swings back this way. So I need to make sure that my line ends up around here. I'm going to draw my curve. Don't worry if your line isn't a perfect curve. Certainly mine isn't either, but it works. Now that we have this, we've got a vertical drop, very short. We got a short horizontal going to the left. Okay, good. Now we have this line here. We want to make sure that we get this angle, and this line and this corner pretty much align with that curve. So that gives us a target. Right? So what we're doing is we're also developing our alignment skills. We'll be covering that more in later lessons, but we want to make sure that things line up vertically and horizontally in our drawings. Now that I have this, there's this line that curves this way, dropping down, which almost pretty much aligns with where we were before. Okay, good. And now this line mimics this angle. They basically have the same angle right there. You see that? And I want to make sure that I draw this correctly. Okay, good. Now we have an angle dropping this way. I need to make sure that I get the length right too. Okay, good. And I think that's right because if I check this, see how it basically aligns with up here? So that looks good. Now one last line to draw. This curve. Now this curve, it's ascending. It gets kind of close to this point right here, and it aligns with this one. So I have two things that will help me figure out where that line's going to go. I want to figure out that this is going to be about here, and it's going to end around here. That's my guess, right? You see why I chose those areas? So now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and draw my curve. And that looks about right. This weird shape that has no meaning, it looks correct. But the skills that we needed to use, we needed to figure out line length, line angle, curvature, all these things factored into this drawing to make it hopefully a success. So here's the second task from the PDF from our lesson. This one also has line progressions, but these are even a little bit more challenging than the previous one. Here we have a horizontal progression that goes from left to right, but it's descending mostly, going all the way down. This vertical progression drops down again this way, and we have another horizontal vertical progression, which is going to be challenging for us. But let's go ahead and give it a shot, right? So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and do some alignment this way. It looks like this line should probably start around here, and I want to go ahead and get this angle. It's a very short angle going like this. And now you notice that little line change right there. In fact, I should zoom in a little bit more so we can see it better. See this little line right here? I'm going to go ahead and mimic that. We have another line, but it doesn't have the same angle as this one. In fact, let me use my highlighter so you can see it. This line is going in this direction, but this line is going in this direction. I can even feel it in my wrist as I was trying to get the different angles. So I want to make sure that these are not the same. This one is going slightly flatter, and it looks like it's about this long. There's another line that goes this way. This line looks about the same. I said tentatively. I think it is. And I think it's about this long. Guesses, right? But our guesses are getting better and better. And now we've got this curved hook here at the end. And that looks about right. Now let's go ahead and deal with this vertical progression here. It looks like a heartbeat, huh? So I want to go ahead and go this way. It drops vertically down. And now we've got a series of line changes that are going, line direction changes. Some are sharp corners, some are curved. We need to make sure that we pay attention to that in order to do it well. I've got a very short turn this way. Then it zigzags back. Then it zigzags back this way. But now there's a curve to it. Now it's curving again. Oh my gosh, this is very complicated. Now it curves like this. So far, I think I'm okay. Now we've got this line that goes beyond it even more. So I need to make sure that I account for that. Then it comes back this way. And so all these skills that I'm using here for line length, angle, curvature, for these drawings that don't have meaning, it's really helping me because it's forcing me to look at these objects that I really wouldn't have really paid much attention to. This line goes way far to the left. And then we want to go back down this way. Okay, good. Now let's go ahead and deal with the horizontal and vertical progression. I'm going to find this spot right here and see how this line has a bit of a curvature to it, slight. Then this line, this kind of big scoop right here, is a little bit longer. This one is shorter. This one has a straight angle down. So what I'd really encourage for those of you watching is download this PDF from the website, creativitybridge.com. It's a free download. You can download and print these things, and you can draw them. And if they don't come out right the first time, print another, draw it again. You can print in black and white to save on your ink costs. The whole point of it is to try your drawing skills, to develop the ability to recognize line length, line angle, and curvature. And the more you do this, even if it's the same one over and over, the better you're going to get. These are challenging for me, and I designed them. Now, don't think that these were just random lines. I took a while to figure out these lines, trying to make sure that a lot of skills were happening at the same time. To make sure that it looks good, okay? This right here is the third of the 3 drawing tasks waiting for you at creativitybridge.com. And as you can see, this is the mother of all line progressions. Starting from the top, you have a lot of directional changes as it goes down, comes back up, goes down, goes to the left, to the right. And you can see that this is just way too crazy here. But it's also very beneficial for you. By practicing this, by developing your skills, you're going to find that you're going to become a better artist because it takes into account line length, line angle, and curvature. All 3 of the elements are here completely to help you out, okay? So I'd like you guys to give it a shot. Now, here's the thing. I know that it's going to be frustrating to do this, and it may be tempting to go, oh, I just can't do this. I'm not an artist. But every artist who's ever existed has made a lot of mistakes, more bad drawings than good. Most of them probably did it when they were young and they just weren't aware that they were making bad drawings. And so they got past that point where they weren't embarrassed anymore about making a bad drawing, and now they have skill. And so maybe you're at a point where you have your ego telling you, you can't do this, you can't do this. What I'd ask you to do is to kind of turn off that ego for a bit and just give it a shot, right? I think you'll find that you'll be surprised at how good the drawing comes out. It may not be exactly what you want it to look like. It may not look exactly like this, but in the struggle, we're going to improve because we have to get our mistakes out of our system in order to become a better artist. To download this free PDF, click on the upper menu and click on the first unit of Drawing and Perception. The first lesson, Perception and Patience, has a PDF link. Click on the link, which will take you to the Gumroad website, and there you can scroll down and enter the amount you'd like to pay and click I want this. So allow me to sum up the goals for this Creativity Bridge lesson. 1. Develop our perception skills. We're going to leave the symbolic world behind, the world of childlike art. We're going to let that go and start heading toward realism. 2. Develop patience to see specific detail. Slowing down and turning off that inner critic will help, believe me. 3. Not fearing mistakes. Remember, if you never make an attempt to improve at something, you definitely won't improve. We must separate our ego from the result. Our goal is improvement, not perfection. Before we have any chance of improving, we need to develop patience with ourselves. So don't beat yourself up. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make drawings that disappoint you, but we're also going to be learning from those mistakes. Indeed, realizing you've made a mistake is already a sign of improvement. So don't listen to that negative voice in your head, all those negative voices from your past. After all, when we were born, none of us sprinted out of that hospital on day one. We all crawled and stumbled many times before our steps became confident. We kept getting up. So on this creative journey, we'll also stumble and fall. And like we did when we were young, we'll keep getting up. So I'm hoping that we've established a healthy approach to this artistic journey with some valuable perception tips to start us off. In the lessons that follow, we'll methodically add new strategies and insights to our skill set to expand on what we've learned from the previous lesson, and the results to come will please you, I'm sure of it. So visit our website, creativitybridge.com, and download the free lesson PDF today. Work on those drawing tasks and try your best. We'll be drawing in our next lesson, so have your pencil ready. I'm Ruben Cueto, and thank you for joining me here on the Creativity Bridge. And always remember, creativity is your birthright. May it never leave you.